I am Teepa Snow, and this is Dawn Kirby. She is an amazing woman. She's also a mom. And it turns out I just found out a second ago in the world of physical therapy. So, Dawn, tell us a little bit about you and how you came into the world that I live in a lot.
Okay. Well, I've been a physical therapist assistant for almost 24 years. I started out actually in special education at a school as an aide and decided that I would like to pursue physical therapy. And at that time, I was a mom of young kids, but we had a physical therapy assistant program nearby, and I was married and still am. And so I got into that type of field and I love it. Right now, I currently work as a physical therapist assistant on the home care part of it. So I do see a lot of elderly people, Parkinson's, dementia, those type of things. So that's kind of how I got along with that. So
you knew a little bit about me just by way of what it was you did in your profession, but, in passing, nothing really deep or wide, but you knew about me.
Yes. I had watched some of your sessions and, do the fact that I do have that type of patient load. And so that was kind of not on a personal basis, but that type of basis.
Yeah. So you were aware and you did some video viewing and you said, oh, yeah, that's cool. And you used some of that stuff, I'm thinking, integrated some things into practice. That was cool. So then tell us about the other side of the street and the other side of the story, which is the reason you're actually here. Because, lots of people are physical therapy assistants who would be using some of our stuff. And that's terrific. And we love to talk to folks. But you have a particular story. It's a little less yay and more wow. A lot more wow. So
yes. Unfortunately, my story and my journey in life kind of took a turn. I'd lost several of my family members, but my youngest daughter, Kara, was planning to have a baby. She'd gone through in vitro, doing, just the wonderful things, be a grandma again type thing. And that's always exciting. And anyway, as she approached having the baby, my niece was killed in a car accident 6 weeks before the baby. She was only 16. Kara has the baby. 3 days later, Grandpa dies, my stepdad of 40 some years. And so Kara was, of course, just been through a hormonal mess, having a baby, and of course, then a lot of post-trauma. So anyway, as the months went on, we thought this just doesn't seem like postpartum. She was becoming very OCD. She was becoming very irrational in her behaviors. Her personality had changed. And we had seen maybe some signs of that prior, but you have always an excuse. Okay.
Yeah, just say when you're pregnant.
You're pregnant. That's an excuse for lots of things.
Yeah.
Especially hormonally, you're just kind of emotional or, a little bit OCD about worrying about your new firstborn, as firstborn moms, we're that way. Yeah. So several months into it, she started telling me about this quote devil voice that she was hearing. And as we found out later, an auditory hallucination type thing. But it was more of a thing that, I'm like, okay, this is not normal. We need to, investigate this. So, of course, we went the psychiatric direction because that's what it all seemed to be.
Yeah. You had a lot of things that spoke to, and how old was your daughter at that time?
Oh, yes. At that time, Kara was only 28.
28.
Okay. 28.
So she's a 28-year-old who had lost her grandfather. She had lost her cousin. Yeah, who they were pretty decently close. And that was her mini-me. Extremely close. Ouch. Okay, so that was really hard on her. She had just had a child that she had to work hard to have the child. So that wasn't just with in vitro, sometimes chemicals in the brain, chemicals in the body. And
exactly.
She's been doing that for a while. So, there's lots of reasons to suspect there's something neurologically, chemically going on here, but you weren't thinking structurally, you're thinking neurologically, chemically.
Chemically, yes, exactly. So we went to the psychiatrist, and of course he was like listening to what she had to say, and he was thinking, okay, let's try these medications. We're going to try to get some of this under control. She'd become very OCD, very much washing her hands till they bled, just all types of things. She wasn't making rational decisions. Like,
were you guys intimately involved with her child rearing at that time too? And
we had to be, yes.
Well, I know people will be thinking, did she still have the child? So I thought I'd go ahead and ask the question that I'm sure everybody's thinking about at this moment with a newborn. So you were managing. Now I'm taking a step back from your daughter and going, you're managing a newborn, probably a distressed husband.
Yes.
Your daughter, who's not actually acting like your daughter much. You're also working still.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you had lost your stepdad of 40 plus years, and your niece.
Yes. Who was the daughter of my baby sister who had passed away at 34 of cancer.
Oh.
So she was more than just my niece.
Oh my gosh. Ow, ow, ow. So, I mean, your risk for having your brain not work entirely 100% accurately is right in the ballpark as well. I mean, because you've got tremendous amounts of change and stress and distress and loss. And wow. I mean,
yes, it was quite overwhelming to say the least. And I'm trying to take care of my mother, who had lost her husband and who had lost her baby granddaughter, her youngest granddaughter, but a few years earlier had lost her youngest daughter. And so I'm taking care of my mom, trying to figure Kara out, trying to help with the newborn because her husband had to work and he worked different hours. And I finally took a whole month off to, say, time out. I'm going to stay with her and the baby. I'm going to just do what I can, let her try this medicine, because a lot of that medicine makes you very tired.
Oh, it makes you very tired. It makes you unable to think. I mean, because you're adjusting to this new chemical that we're chemicals that we're introducing in.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
So, it was just, and it just seemed like we were spinning our wheels, and you can't change these type of medications quickly.
No,
you have to try them a while because they have to have
10 weeks, 6 to 10 weeks to build up. And it's like, this isn't going anywhere is what your brain is saying. But you're like, okay, we'll give it another week. But I don't see this getting any better.
Yes. And by this point, I'm only seeing my daughter deteriorate more and making comments. Like one of the things was like, we'd be driving down the road and she may see a squirrel that had been hit by a car. And she would be emotional, like, oh, I can't believe someone hit a squirrel. Like, okay, she knows they do. And it seemed to affect her, but yet she had all blunting of any emotion towards us or the baby. She was not connecting, no personal connections. And I just couldn't understand the disconnect and the fact that the things she did talk about were inappropriate. You know?
I mean, it's not even you're worried about a squirrel, and yet you aren't getting up to do anything with the baby. I'm having to do everything with the baby because I'm betting initiation was also an issue at this point.
Yes. And, when he was first born, she was so ritualistic about things that babies eat on certain times. They only eat milk. She seemed to be functioning fairly well, but it was once we had to start giving him, food, and we started getting out of routine. She just could not handle that at all.
Because it needed to be absolutely in this, with this, for this long, with this amount, and she couldn't control it. She literally
couldn't control it. And at that point, she knew something was wrong with her. Okay. She would say to me, Mom, if someone could just spend 10 minutes in my head, they would know the nightmare I'm living. And it was just horrible. And people, it's bad enough. I mean, people don't really understand anxiety, depression, postpartum, how severe that in itself can be.
Yeah.
And then she just kept getting worse. And like you said, this is not my daughter. She was a nurse. I mean, she'd been a nurse.
Oh,
she was married. And guess what? Her first job was on an Alzheimer's unit. And she was amazing. She was such a caregiver. Oh, such a beautiful girl. And so I kept thinking, I would try every morning. I get up like, we're going to do some cognitive behavioral therapy here, some way to help her overcome this. And it just wasn't working.
No.
So by June, that was the summer of 2017. By the August, when he was turning 1, see, my desperation was, she'd had a miscarriage and then went through in vitro, and she's missing the very thing she ever wanted.
I mean, the one thing that she worked so hard to have happen, there was no joy in it. There was no pleasure in it. There was no participation really in it in a meaningful way.
No, there couldn't be. She was very, she would watch the same movie over and over. Everything was just, we did not realize it until later. There's things that you look back and you see, okay, ding, 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 right? But by this point, I got a hold of Postpartum International. I was desperate. And I talked to, a postpartum psychosis advisor. And she said, I think you should take her to one of the 2 perinatal psychiatric units in the United States. So that sent us to UNC at Chapel Hill. Thought we'd go there 2 weeks. They'd work on medications. They know that's all they do. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is my sign, And went there 2.5 months later. Yes, we were there. I lived in North Carolina in a family secu house is what they called it.
Wow.
And they couldn't figure her out. At one point she was catatonic, partly from medication. They even did electroconvulsive therapy.
Oh my heavens. Yeah. Wow. Oh no. Cause that's the last ditch effort is when somebody is severely depressed and anxious. You can try it, but wow, they were really shooting in the dark trying to figure something out.
Yes. And finally, we left there with, she can't be alone with, severe OCD. They couldn't really give us an answer, but there was no reason. I mean, we had just spent 2.5 months, and that was I was so heartbroken. And every night I would walk across that walkway and I say, God, when we figure this out, I'm going to make sure some other young mother doesn't go through this. Absolutely. Little did I know the journey we would be on. We got back to Illinois because I live in Paris, Illinois, which is just across from Terre Haute, Indiana.
Yep.
Her doctor's in Terre Haute. And I went back to him. He's an amazing psychiatrist. He's been with her since all of this happened. And he said, Dawn, if UNC didn't do it, I'm not going to figure this out. That's an amazing hospital. And they were amazing to her.
Yeah.
That FTD was not on the radar for a 28-year-old.
Well, here's the really sad part in some ways. Dan Coffer, who is one of the top-notch FTD physicians, because he died of prostate cancer this past year.
Yes.
But he's at UNC. He worked in the School of Medicine where I used to work. And I worked with Dan when he was at, and he is like top notch for identifying, following up, working with people with FTD, among other specialized dementias.
Yes.
But he is top line. So, oh my heavens, one department over. And
yes. Well, they had a lot of neuro consultation.
Yep.
She had an MRI, but it wasn't the right.
It wasn't bad enough yet. It didn't show up enough yet with the structural changes that were going on, because it was mostly chemical and it was fast with her.
Yeah, and I see that when we got back to Paris, and went to the doctor. He said, I'm going to send you to Mayo Clinic in Rochester. And that was the blessing right there. Now, it was a bittersweet blessing because the diagnosis we got after all the testing, because she went to see a psychiatrist, but that psychiatrist started looking at her, said, I want a neuro workup, and there's something more to this. She doesn't present as a typical
this is not postpartum.
schizophrenic.
This isn't schizophrenia. This isn't
bipolar.
There's too many things that don't make sense. None of it, and none of it should be progressive given what she's done and how well you've tried to handle this and how much you did a good evaluation. I mean, we should be touching this and we're not touching it in a reasonable
Exactly.
fashion. Yeah.
So once we met Dr. Beauvais, Bradley Beauvais is an expert in FTD. He was he was actually very upset. I hate to have to give you this. I know this isn't what you came for. And I said, you know what? We've already been living the nightmare. You're just putting a name on it.
I was going to say, giving me the diagnosis doesn't change what I've lived with for over a year and a half. I mean, of the real time. I mean, so all you're doing is helping me understand what I've been living with, not that I hadn't been living with it.
And the fact that now you're going to figure out what you're facing. Because it's hard to get up every single day and go to bed defeated every night. Yeah. Not feeling that you're just defeated.
And, and the idea that with postpartum, we can figure out how to treat a depression and anxiety. I mean, there are things we can do for the chemistry of the brain, and you did them all, and you're still at ground zero. You're not even improving. You couldn't even find improvement happening. Nothing.
Yes, and it's not like no one tried, because we did. I mean, I took her clear halfway across the country to what I thought would be the best. And so finally, we came back.
So I'm curious, Dawn, when he said this is what it is, it was FTD, frontal variant or
behavioral variant. Behavioral variant.
Okay, behavioral variant. And she wasn't losing too much of her language yet. And I say yet because I know there's going to be a yet involved in it.
At that point, she wasn't, but yet we realized that most of her responses were automatic. Mm-hmm. Okay. There wasn't, if you ask her, she's going to tell you the same thing as if that's what she's supposed to say. And they were appropriate. Most of the time.
Social. I mean, she had the social cover still there, and there was a turn taking. She still had turn taking, and she still had the rhythm of a conversation, sort of. So it would be very surface, but that you were going, well, she just does the surface. That's all she does. And it's like, that's all the language.
And she had no filter. Okay. She had no filter. She would say things, and I'd be like, in front of people, strangers. And I'm like, ooh, and then that was definitely not my daughter. No. And then also right before she got diagnosed, she had gone to the store. Her husband, she was staying with her husband at that time, just like when he would have days off. We were trying to keep everything as best we could. And he messaged me and he said, Kara said when she went to the store, her debit card didn't work. So she just walked out with the groceries. And I'm like, what? And so I call her and I'm like, Kara, and she could tell me, believe this, she could say it was $41.35. Yep. She knew, but I said, why did you do that? She said, what else was I supposed to do?
No problem solving no logic about the morality or the ethics of what she did. It was just like, well, what else am I supposed to do? The debit card didn't work. And it's like, you can't take the groceries. Well, I need groceries. And it's like, you can't use logic because there isn't logic there to use. And
exactly. I mean, she was very serious.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do? Yeah. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, thank God we're going to Mayo Clinic, because that was just about a month before Mayo Clinic. And the things that she would say and do, it was just like, I can't believe this. But yet she could fill her own medicine box. Yeah. Because she knew that, because she was a nurse and I would watch her. I tried to let her do what she could. Yeah.
What were you
But
doing
then
with childcare by then?
By then, mostly it was everyone else. She was getting more disconnected.
I was going to say, I know she never had a super tight connection, but even that, did you have episodes where she would like, tell him to shut up, I need to talk to you right now? I mean, did that kind of thing happen or not?
Well, there were times it wasn't as much that as like when she was trying to feed him, she tried to hold his head still because she didn't understand why he's not holding his head still and he's not even a year old. And I tried to say, Kara, and she had two nephews and a niece. She knew.
And she did childcare before. It wasn't like
that. And she was a nurse. So it wasn't like she didn't have caring skills. But if it was more of, this is what I need to do, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Very task driven. I mean, which speaks to where she came from. Her very core is she likes to get things done. But she always did it really well. And so that was just part of her. And now it's the thing is she likes to get things done. Whatever that means, it has to get done. I have to get the groceries. If my debit card doesn't work, I still have to get the groceries. Yeah, I didn't pay for them because I couldn't get the debit card to work. And it was like,
and that's
just an idea. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So by the time she got diagnosed, she was still carrying on conversation. We would try to, and actually she would interact with him, but just more surface because, they tend to just kind of get in their own little world. But we would do things to make memories because we knew things would only get worse, unfortunately. And so as time went on, she found out she liked to swing because we'd all gone to the park. And she could tell you, I love this because I loved to swing when I was a child. And it was very therapeutic for her, know, to swing.
Vestibular. It's very vestibular. Oh, yeah.
Yes. And she loved it. And it was like, oh, good. While she's swinging, she's not pacing and being OCD and turning light switches on and off. And and then everyone got to rest at that point. So finally, though, as she progressed, well, at this point, she was divorced. After we got back, things happened, and her dad and I always knew, which we had already pretty much had her at home anyway. So we were like, okay, this is what's going to happen. We're going to take her home. We get visitation for her, and we see her son, who's almost 4 now. He'll be 4 in July, because he was born in 2017. And then, so my husband early retired to be home, and I work PRN through my job so that we can be flexible, because she is a 24-hour day job now. She's progressed or declined, however you want to put it, quite a bit over the last year. At this point, and this took time. As time went on, we started seeing, she used to, even in 2019, she could maybe text somebody. Of course, she always said the same thing. How are you? What you're doing? But she could, but she can't. Then when I saw that fall off, and that went away. And then, she started having, just one day, she just stood and urinated all over the place. All this, and she had it didn't affect her. She didn't think anything of it. And she lost her control of that. Then came the bowel, and she's already having trouble.
How about eating? How about taking stuff in?
Well, eating, she was a binge eater. Okay. FTD, they become very much a binge eater. She could still be, in some respects, that she can't make it herself. If you didn't put food out, she wouldn't eat it, know.
So she didn't go exploring the environment, trying to get in the refrigerator and eat like a jar of mayonnaise. Okay.
She used to. And she would be fixated on brownie bites. And then it would change into something else. Then we got her on to grapes because they're better than brownie bites.
They're a little better.
She could sit and eat 18 brownie bites, and never feel full, and go searching for more. As a matter of fact, we have a lock on our pantry.
That's pretty common.
Because she just would want to eat. And it's not because she's hungry.
No, it's just something to do. It's some skill that you still have. It's something to occupy time. It's something that your brain says, yeah, let's put something in. Let's put something in. And
Yes.
there's no limit to it. Wow.
Yes. And then she is now doing the pocketing, like the swallow, like not a lot of choking yet, but she pockets food.
Yeah.
And I wonder I was just excited to be able to talk to you about all this, but she'll put water in her mouth, and then she just lets it spit out.
Yeah.
Is that just because she doesn't go ahead and swallow?
Yeah. If she doesn't have an automatic swallow, then her brain doesn't know the next step. And so it just hangs just like the pocketing. It's the same thing with the food, only it's liquid. And so it comes back out the front, because she also doesn't seal her lips, which you have to do. And you have to seal the nares so that you can swallow and create the negative pressure. And her brain just goes, yeah. And there it comes. It just drags back out.
She may carry it in her mouth into the other room, and then all of a sudden she'll just lean over.
And it'll fountain out.
It'll go all out.
And whatever food stuff was in there, it's there too, because it's not a clean swallow. Like when we drink and swallow, we just swallow it in, swallow it down, unless we're swishing and spitting or swishing and swallowing and to clean out stuff. And her brain simply has no ability to do that at all. Is she doing it just
little pieces?
Yeah.
Yeah. And she makes the noise like she's spitting. She'll go patuya. She can't talk, but she
can do that.
Okay.
Oh, yikes.
Bless her heart.
Yeah, bless her heart is really, it's not a fate or a status that we would wish on our worst enemy, let alone the daughter of your heart and the little girl that you had. And wow.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to help us spread Teepa's positive approach message around the world. And don't forget to click the bell to get notified when new videos are posted.